8 of the Something Blu podcast. A podcast that seeks to talk about interesting films, cool films, from the basis of people that usually are into collecting physical media, but occasionally not. They're just kind of into interesting cinema. And this week I've got, he's a bit of a pro at this. Actually, somebody that I've been... Yeah,
collecting media, probably.
Yeah, well, that's probably true. So I've been lucky to be on one of his many podcasts, and I'll let him talk about that in a second. And it's nice to be able to return the favour by having him on here. How you doing, Kev?
Fine, mate. How's things over your way?
They are, cold. Temperatures dropped.
Yes.
Nights are getting shorter, or longer, should I say? Yeah.
It's all perfect. It's fine. I'm fine with it being cold and dark. I'm Nosferatu after all, so
that's true. You're warming up for the next casting because it's due a remake every 3 or 4 years. That film, as you know, we've got one coming out shortly, so you go for the next one. That's probably a good idea. So if anybody doesn't know who you are, Kev, what do you do? Where might they otherwise find you? What else have you done?
I'm all over the internet like a bad rash. My name is Cev Moore. I'm a podcaster. I am on the House of Hammer podcast every fortnight, on FilmGuff every blue moon at the minute, because for me and Ali, it's like trying to get two gases to form at the same time. Yeah. It's crazy. And then I'm on Lies Amicus as well, which is on its final stretch. Over these next few months, I've got, I think, 8 films left to cover on that.
Right. Very nice. Yes. And always, for anybody that hasn't listened to any of this podcast, they're always of the highest order. I often joke with Kev whenever I'm on FilmGuff, whenever I get the chance to go on there. I just like how my voice sounds when Kev's had his hands on the voice. So unfortunately, it'll not sound as good this week, but I'll try my best to do it justice. But great to have you along, mate. Yeah. Right, so first things we're going to talk about things I've been watching recently, things that tickle the fancy. I usually let my guests go first. Kev, what have you been watching, or what have you been?
I've been watching a few Radiance films just lately.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's they're the kind of standouts that I can think of straight off. OC and Stiggs.
Oh yes,
which is
Altman.
Altman, yeah, thank you. We're just completely blanked then. I'm thinking, it's Robert something. No. Is it? I don't know. Yeah.
You could have pretended you were in first name terms with him, you know.
Probably, yeah, we're about the same age. But it's Altman on full tilt. He's you know about his editing style and the way that he works and how everybody sort of steps on each other's lines and stuff. But it's like he's been unleashed and to make a teen movie, which is just a weirdest idea anyway. And then he's got, I think it's his son that's doing the set design. So his son has got the same kind of eye that Altman has for filmmaking, as in he's got an insane idea as far as colour palette and set design. And I'm trying to think where it would resemble. It's probably as vivid as Blue Velvet as far as visuals are concerned. And it's as if everything's on Technicolor that's been cranked up to every highest level you can get. All your RGB is up at the top. It's fantastic. But it's great because you've got OC and Stiggs that are the most anti-John Hughes 80s heroes you could possibly get. They are just a pair of shits. They really are the worst. And they're just, all they wanted to do is make life impossible for everybody around them. And it's just so refreshing to watch something like this, where it's a teen movie, but nothing's getting any moral about it. They're just a couple of shits, and it's a great free ride, basically. I can see why it completely bombed when it first came out, because there's nothing like it at the time. That to release that when they did, it's like, oh God almighty. I think it went up against Ferris Bueller. So it's oh yeah, the polar opposite. So if you want something irreverent, OC and Stiggs is fantastic.
Yeah. I've heard that from a couple of people, Kev, in terms of like that idea that I can see why it bombed, but there's something really cool left at the heart of this, of sort of a filmmaker that was obviously very well known, prominent, had a very clear style by that stage, but had made something that was just really interesting, that didn't connect with people, but that you're left with something that a lot of people will enjoy, you know what I mean, in terms of what's left there. So, yeah, I haven't seen it myself yet.
It's well worth
obviously.
It. Yeah, especially for the transfer, because obviously with the vividness of how everything looks, watching it on a proper decent setup, oh God almighty, yeah, it really does it some service, because there's so much going on. Everything is really detailed, even down to color schemes, as far as different people's houses have a different sort of take, if you like, where you've got one house that's just full of cactuses, no idea why, just full of cactuses everywhere, just green. But then of course the characters in there also dress accordingly, so it's a weird kind of, I wonder whether League of Gentlemen had actually seen this, because the House of Frogs,
yes
it's that kind of idea where it's kind of, it's almost like they are paying homage to O.C. and Stiggs. Right. They probably aren't, but it looks that way.
But that sensibility. Do you know what you usually find in that case, Kev? It's like there'd be like an assistant production designer that worked on O.C. and Stiggs that ended up on League of Gentlemen or something.
Yeah. Brothers, friends, girlfriends,
something like that.
Something like the other couple are a couple of really noiry, but neo-noiry films. Miami Blues.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Loved it.
Yes. Again, quite downbeat. A very anti-hero. I'll not give away the ending, but a killer ending. And again, it looks fantastic. It's very much the look of Michael Mann's Miami Vice, but
it does. That's very true. Yeah,
but even grittier, if you can possibly do that. And then the other one's the Don Johnson and Jennifer Connelly film, which I absolutely loved. Yeah, The Hotspot. Yeah. Oh God, there's some nasty bastards in that film.
Oh, for sure.
It's a great film. Again, everybody's just out for themselves in that, and it just becomes crossed, double crossed. Oh my God, now they've flipped it again. Oh shit, what's going on? What starts off as a simple robbery in a yokel village town kind of, it's not even a town, you can't call it a town. I think there's only about 6 houses in it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And a car dealership.
Yeah, and a car dealership. And a hotel. Yeah, great.
Yeah. The good stuff. The thing about The Hotspot that strikes me is, like, it takes me back to when I was a much younger man and I first seen Jennifer Connelly on screen, and I don't think I ever appreciated how beautiful people could be.
Yeah.
In some ways, so just like, it was like amazing. But they use that very well in the film as this kind of like contrast of the two female characters within it, which is brilliant,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because the way that she's made to, she's designed to be completely alluring, but completely innocent.
And
it's great to have that sort of duplicity with her. And especially when you've got Don Johnson, who again looks beautiful. I mean, he's Don Johnson, for God's sake. You can't help it. But he's an absolute shit. Yeah. He's just a horrible heel of a man. Yeah. And he's just wanted to get his way with everybody and anything, and it doesn't really pay off that well for him.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it's funny, you went from Miami Heat, talking about with Miami Vice, then using Miami Vice of Don Johnson to get to get the hotspot.
Never stole the link.
Yeah, Miami Heat always interesting me because obviously Alec Baldwin's in it. But when it started, I was like, I can't believe this isn't Ryan Gosling. Like, he looks so much like him. And obviously the time period was like, well, it's obviously not Ryan Gosling, because I didn't even realize it was Alec Baldwin until maybe about 10 minutes in the movie, and I went, oh, that's who that is, kind of thing.
Skinny.
But again, is that
he's
dirty?
So skinny.
Yeah,
skinny Alec Baldwin. He's just odd to see him like that.
It is, and the spiky hair and stuff,
Yeah.
that style. Fred Ward's the star of that for me, which is kind of interesting because he was going to play the main character, obviously, at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had kind of earmarked himself to do it and then realized he probably wasn't pretty enough to be able to carry it off. I think he might have been right. But yeah, I love both those films. Kind of like they really stood out to me as well.
Fred Ward in that as well. Again, he just knocks it out of the park. Is it? Every time I've seen anything with Fred Ward, and you suddenly think, "Oh, hang on a second, yeah, this is going to get interesting," because you never know what he's going to bring to the table. But it's always absolutely a spot-on read of what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. And so Radiance in general, as a label, you've enjoyed what you've seen of them this year, then, Kev? That's been
your feeling
of it?
I seem to be dipping my toe into the shallow end of the pool, because he's releasing a lot of really nice, worthy art house stuff, and absolutely no problem with that. But I've just got to the point where I'm up to here with it. I'm just buried in art house. In fact, I'm going to talk about an art house release next. But the fact that there's so much out there, and I think, oh God, can I really have time to sit down and watch a 3-hour film in Dutch or something? I just want to switch off. But I think it's just because I've been so busy doing what I've been doing,
sure.
And I've got kind of spoilt with the Hammer podcast as well, because at the minute every film I've seen so far seems to be about 70 minutes or less. So to suddenly sit down and think, I've got to actually, sit with some time. Have I got an hour and 40? Damn it, no.
And the Hammer films are designed to entertain you, whereas, like, as much as I love art house cinema and I do, sometimes you just need to sit for 3 hours and let it wash over the top of you, and then have a thought about it.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing.
I'd like how Ali approaches it, where he can watch stuff like the art house stuff and what have you, but he'll quite happily. He just wants to be entertained.
Yeah. Nothing.
Give me the popcorn.
Yeah, for sure.
Fine.
And that idea, for those that have been around watching movies, collecting movies, that kind of stuff for longer than some other ones, you can look at it and go, okay, I know my taste maybe a bit better than I would need to, and that kind of mood watching of, I just want 70 minutes of something.
Yep.
Perfect.
I realised that I've watched Carry On Screaming 4 times this year. Because it's just pure entertainment.
For sure. Well, you know what you're getting,
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, like I've alluded to, the fourth release, I suppose, would have to be the Andrei Zulawski box set, which Eureka. Eureka have really knocked themselves out of the park with this one. I mean, good God, they've done some great stuff just over the last couple of years anyway, with the Karloff sets, the early Universal sets. But then to do On the Silver Globe, which I'd got on a ropey Polish DVD for the last 10 or 12 years, and quite happy that I've actually managed to get all of this film anyway. And then for them to completely remaster it, add in all the stuff that was missing from the original release that was pulled by Polish authorities. God almighty, it's so good. And then to top it all, they did a massive documentary on it. And
all right.
Yeah, it's well worth seeing. It's heart-wrenching, some of it, just watching what they put into it and then what they had to fight for, and wow. And then I suppose on the back of that, I watched, finally got around to watching Zulawski's Cosmos, which was his final film, the French one. Yeah, and what a gorgeous film that is. Again, he plays about with cinema like no other person I can think of. As you're never quite sure whether you're in it, watching it, or are you sort of sat behind him while he's watching it. And it's a really odd perspective it gives you.
Yeah, I've heard from Cosmos that it's not universally liked. I think that's what I'd heard about it.
I can see why. Yeah, it plays with you quite a lot. But it's a beautiful looking film, and it's so amazingly well played. Every member of the cast, and that is all thrusters. A couple of English people in there as well, which I wasn't expecting, but they're completely fluent in French. Like, okay, go for it.
It's like Burt Lancaster in all the Italian films, where he just says he couldn't speak a word of Italian, and he just kind of moved his mouth with the appropriate number of syllables and seemed to work out all right.
He's just doing his shopping list.
Yeah, for 3 packets of super noodles, and so yeah, great stuff. I haven't got digging into that Eureka set myself again. It is sitting on the shelf because mainly my rabbit hole for the past couple of weeks has been falling down the kung fu, of which there's a lot of at the moment, but mainly this supernatural kung fu stuff. So the 2 ones that I've grabbed, I've got one recent one and one older one. So I've got the 7th Curse, which is Chai Yun-Fan as a side character, but as Maggie Chung and Chin Shu Ho on it. He's a cop, and he goes to see he's out in the jungle and he sees like a tribal ritual, but they're going to sacrifice this woman, and he thinks, I can't have this, I'm going to save her. And in saving her, manages to get a curse to put upon himself that he gets 7 blood clots that when they explode, he will die at the 7th. And he goes back to try and fix this curse to save his life. It's very much mystical hoodoo kind of stuff, but what it has in it is some of these, like, the practical effects with like baby monsters and like this gory kind of nonsensey practically effect stuff that makes it, that I'm sure looked terrible at the time, looks even worse now, but in a sort of way makes it even better now, if you know what I mean. It has a form and a style and a presence that you kind of know what you're getting. It's kind of people just being, right, let's throw a lot of shit on screen that's really fun, it's really inventive, and let's make sure people know this isn't really a totally serious movie. This is people that have fun, and you know.
I love that. I'm an absolute sucker for practical effects anyway. Yeah. I mean, even down to Super Mario Brothers film.
Yes, that's right. We just did the FilmGuff episode of. Yeah.
They did some amazing practical effects on that. Yeah. Then it's a rubbish film.
Yeah, but it's in a way that like modern movies have a certain level of practical effects that everything sort of looks sort of good. But in that period of the 80s and 90s, it wasn't necessarily, you know, and that didn't worry people to a certain point. Its ropiness was sort of part of its appeal.
Yeah. And then sometimes you would get some practical effects and you're thinking, wow, is that an effect, or how have they done that? I mean, even down to stuff like Extro, when you see the creature for the first time and it's so bonkers, it just looks so wrong, and you're thinking that has to be some kind of effect, and it's not. It's just a dancer walking around on his backwards on his arms or things like that, and you think, oh god, these are so simple effects, but they're so effective. And then you see stuff that's supposed to be practical now, and they've obviously augmented it afterwards with some CGI, and it just looks absolutely shite.
Well, it's that uncanny valley, isn't it, of what real should look like. And as long as something doesn't pretend to be real, you'll forgive it. But if something nearly looks real, you go, that looks terrible, because it doesn't quite fit.
Even down to blood splats in Valhalla Rising, for instance.
Yeah.
CGI blood. Yeah, that's become a big bugbear for me.
Yeah, go back to Japan, late 60s, early 70s, when they had the reddest of red, but it was definitely not blood. It was paint. You knew it was paint.
The Shaw Brothers sets. When as soon as somebody gets hacked, you've just got gushing blood everywhere. It's fountains of it. Nobody's blood pressure is that bad that it can actually spray the back of the house.
Loads of fun for that, for sure. And the other one in that vein is the Magic Crystal, which came out, which is kind of like Spielberg meets the greatest kung fu ever.
These are both 88 films, aren't they?
Yes, these are both 88. So Magic Crystal is, like, honestly, on one hand, This might be my favorite kung fu in anything. The kung fu is on another level. The choreography is absolutely amazing. There's Wong
Mm.
Jin in it, and it has Cynthia Rothrock and Andy Lau in it, and Richard Norton's in it, and it's just like that part of it's amazing. And then you have this kind of Amblin Spielbergish kind of story about this magic crystal and this young boy, and you're
Okay.
like, this is a bit weird and a bit strange. So it's almost like this family friendly, like ET kind of thing. That's almost what the crystal is because it speaks. It even grows legs at one stage. It even has pull my finger for to get magic powers. It's like the ultimate pedo experience in some ways. And it sort of doesn't, that bit doesn't work, but also it sort of does work because again, it's in this kind of silly pastiche of this film, which is incredible kung fu and thing. And somehow you just come out at the end of it and go, but that was amazing. Plus, you throw in the fact that they go to Greece for some of it. Like, why not? Some
Yeah,
Greece.
why not?
You get the Parthenon in the background. Why not just have it while we're doing kung fu? Let's wreck the place.
Well,
The
you've got
thing's
Cynthia
dumb.
Rothrock.
Well, you do indeed. So the thing's sort of dumb, but it's also
Mm.
sort of brilliant at the same time. I think it's one of those things. If you've seen a lot of the kung fu films and you want something a bit different, then this will do the job very, very nicely. So,
Excellent.
Yeah, that was interesting.
There does seem to be a big slew, like you said. Obviously, 88 seem to be absolutely killing it at the minute as far as Kung Fu releases are concerned.
Yeah.
And Arrow have really tried to weigh into it and say, look, we can do Shaw Brothers. Although
right.
set 3 seems to have just disappeared into the ether with no idea what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Normally comes out around October-ish, doesn't it, every year? Nothing
Not
this year.
year. Well, it
No.
seems like they prioritized both the Bruce Lee stuff this year, and then they've gone Coffin Joe and Child's Play towards the end of the year.
I'm
for the
looking
big
forward to the
sets.
Coffin Joe set. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that shortly, I'm sure. The other thing that I want, again, thinking of upcoming releases, and I know we talked very slightly about this before we started, was that Ghost Stories for Christmas Volume 2 is coming out. And of course,
Yeah.
I waited last year until Ghost Stories for Christmas dropped in price. Volume 1 dropped in price a little bit. So I missed the season for watching Volume 1. So I started watching Volume 1 there. And
in Easter.
Yeah, exactly right. So I watched the first story, which is going to disc by itself, was Whistle and I'd Come to You, which has both versions of it. The original 1960s version with Michael Hordern in it. And then they have included the John Hurt version from 2010 on there as well, which are
I quite like that.
Quite different stories, but it actually is a pretty good showcase for how they've decided to tell stories differently in an intervening period. Because the first one with Michael Hordern, like his face just as a storytelling device in all itself. He basically rocks up at a place, finds a whistle, blows a whistle, shit happens. That's it. He gets haunted. It's scary, right? Whereas the Neil Cross version, the guy who wrote this, has this whole elaborate backstory about, his wife getting put into care. He's moving along. The whole thing is very moody music all the way, the background of it. Whereas in the first film, it's all like the sounds of the seaside, all that kind of stuff. So it's like this total contrast of like how you tell sort of the same story, but with modern sensibilities. And I don't know which one I prefer in some ways. Like, I think they're both very good in their own way.
I love the sound design of the 60s one. Especially when he starts to lose it towards the end and it all becomes like what is going on? This is noises you can't do now with sampling technology. They're just using bits of tape and a sock. I'm sure of it.
And then go ahead. But yeah, that idea of the difference in sound design, because it is only when things really start to go wrong in the 68 version that you really, the sound design really elevates that, because everything else has been so normal and, like, for want of a better word, British before that. Just him walking along the seaside, going creaking doors, that kind of stuff, and then you get the difference, and you're like, oh, things are gone a bit Pete Tong here. This is not right. Yeah, but it's just a great set that I've only one disc in so far, and I kind of think. Like, here's a question that if anybody's not British that watches this, I don't think a Ghost Stories for Christmas would work kind of anywhere else in the world.
Possibly Japan, because they believe that ghosts exist anyway. They're part of the furniture. So that probably would work. I can't see it working in the States because they like, Elf and things like that at Christmas. I'm not sure how that translates.
But it's more this environmental storytelling. Like literally, he's walking on a beach for the first 40 minutes, and he's kind of there's nothing happening. He's just kind of speaking the
Yeah.
odd word to somebody. And for like primetime TV or something as it would be at the time, it's only the last
Yeah.
10 minutes that something happens, and so this kind of very pensive, not actiony style. And maybe I have to say maybe it doesn't work even in ITV in Britain. It needs to be on the BBC
Possibly.
with no breaks and stuff, that kind of stuff, where you
Yeah.
kind of give somebody
Ooh.
the chance to do it. But
That's a horrible thought. Can you imagine a ghost story for Christmas with an ad break in the middle?
2 or 3 outbreaks as it might be. Yeah.
Oh, just as the tension is starting to ramp, suddenly we'll cut away and we'll destroy everything. You'll come back and you'll be all refreshed again.
Yeah. But that's why they're very filmic. They're very film style productions, insofar as they kind of know their runtime, they know what they're going to do with their runtime, and they make sure that it takes the pace and etc. fits that.
They know how to use. Yeah, they know how to use the locations as well. Like you said with beach, there's a one into the Curious where they use a wood to great effect. And it's not even particularly a dense wood. It's just a few trees, a light smattering, if you like. But it's enough to take you out into the countryside, away from what we're used to in cities and towns. And that's when you start getting into folk horror as well. So it's always nice to see that. And then you've got stuff like The Signalman, where it's a beautiful location. It's just a signal box and turn of century. And it's so evocative. It's fantastic. But very simple stuff.
Usually with good actors, etc. That kind of stuff to enhance it. But
yes.
Plenty more to get into in the set, and I'm really looking forward to tipping that on to Christmas and then on to the end of the month when the volume 2 comes out and I can keep on going.
Set 2. Oh, I can't wait for set 2.
That's going to be great.
That's this Christmas sorted. Oh, next Easter for you.
Exactly. Come back this time next year and I'll tell you all about volume 2. That's it. And the last one we're going to talk about, since we're in November and it's supposed to be noir season, I've watched Hitchcock's Notorious with Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant.
Criterion version.
It is the Criterion version.
Show
it's
off.
not actually on. It's not on any of the other box setty ones that I have, as far as I think, Notorious. So I had to get a version of it from somewhere else. But first time watch for me. Never seen Notorious before. It's very not Hitchcockian in some ways and Hitchcockian in other ways. Story of they take the daughter of a disgraced businessman, and the American Secret Service use her to root out Nazi sympathizers, so to speak. It's a bit of a dark premise now that I think about it.
Yes. Now, Notorious, is that the one with the windmill scene at the beginning?
Oh, I don't.
Or is that something else? Oh my God, I'm going to have to go back through. That's going to get... I've just been checking me House of...
No, it doesn't. No,
I've just been checking me House of Hitchcock box set. And it's not on there. And I never noticed.
Yeah, so I was in the same position.
Oh,
Kev.
It's Torn Curtain, I think, with the windmill.
Oh, with the windmill. Yes, I've got that due to be watched in the next kind of while. Now, this one has a very famous scene in a wine cellar. It has a famous scene with I was going to say with a staircase. Every Hitchcock film has a staircase in it. I think I put that.
Not everyone has Martin Bolton on it, though.
Well, that's true. But you have like Cary Grant being Cary Grant, and you have Claude Rains being not Claude Rains very much either. Like I think he's pretty great at it as well. That's one of the things. So yeah, kind of like flips the femme fatale idea on his head. I don't really want to say why because it's spoilerish, but the kind of
because Cary Grant's playing the femme fatale.
Do you know what? I think that's a pretty good observation, Kev. I definitely think there's something to be said for that. I'm going to steal that and present that as my own. That's good.
Yeah, that's a freebie.
That's a freebie. So yeah, Notorious, great Hitchcock movie. Apparently, Alfred Hitchcock made a lot of good movies. Who knew? But yeah, I like that. I like that quite a bit. That was me. So that's my watches for the recent while, and I'd probably watch another couple of Hitchcocks before the end of the month because
Well,
tis the season.
November. Yeah,
indeed. Tis the season.
I got the reissues, the Arrow box set, the one with Naked City and Brute Force.
Brute Force, yes, the Jules Dassin ones.
Yeah, the Tales of the Urban Jungle. Just because you've got a new commentary on Brute Force, and it's a different commentary on Naked Jungle.
Oh,
So
very good.
don't dump your old discs, is what I say for that one.
Yeah.
Except perhaps Brute Force, because there's nothing on that.
Yeah. But these things get revisited and reappraised and then restuck out and with new packaging, new artwork, and then you're sure the quid's in. There's 25 quid.
Give me some postcards, mate, and I'm salted.
Fucking postcards.
Art cards. It's all art cards now. They've changed it.
Some of them call them art cards, some of them call them lobby cards, some of them
I know.
Oh my god.
Lobby cards? What fucking lobby has a lobby card that big? You know, it doesn't make any sense. In a lobby, it's a massive thing. It's like 4 foot by 6 foot, not 4 inches by 6 inches, dickheads. Honestly.
I still think the actual end game for the lobby cards, postcards, whatever way you want to talk about it is, when I die and people are wondering what to do with my collection, I want them to take all the lobby cards out and use them instead of firelighters for starting the fire to cremate me. And I think that might be a metaphor of
as daft as it
my
seems
movie
with the amount of lobby cards and art cards you've got now. Yeah, the amount of lobby cards and art cards you've got now, you'd be able to have a Viking funeral.
Exactly right. It would be honestly clear 10-mile radius.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
For a couple of weeks.
Oh dear. So that's what we've been watching recently, and lots of great stuff there. I think for me to even get into, because that's another person with OC and Stig's recommended, and then obviously the Zulawski set that I need to get my teeth into. That should be good. Talking about what's coming up for the next while, so we're coming to the end of the year. I've been trying to ask people, Kev, about things that they've seen this year that they think, if somebody's got a Christmas wish list or they've got a loved one that who hasn't got a clue what to buy for them, as I think many of us kind of fall into that. What kind of things have you got this year, or have you seen this year that somebody else should probably ask for?
What have I picked up this year that's really stood out? First off, I can think is the comic strip box set from Severin Films. They've not particularly done anything amazing with the discs themselves. The transfers are slightly better than what we've got in the UK, but considering most of them were done on grubby ends of bits of film and stuff, and sometimes VHS recorders, it's about as good as you're going to get, really. They've not got any original film elements as such, so it's good just to have it in that compact and easy way to play it. I mean, they're all on Channel 4 player, but I can't be doing the adverts, and I can't be doing with the Channel 4 player either, because sometimes it's just so appallingly slow. Ugh.
It feels like you watch something for 2 minutes and there's an ad, and then you watch something for 3 minutes and there's an ad.
Yeah.
I tried a couple of things. I'd seen a couple of series in there, and I went, I could binge watch that over the next while. Started and never got to the end of the first episode because I was like, this isn't even an experience worth talking about.
Yeah, and there are some good documentaries at the end as well. Obviously, looking back on comic strip and where it sits in the whole landscape of TV at the time, and obviously, Five Go Mad in Dorset was the first episode to go out on the first night of Channel 4. So,
I didn't know that.
It's it's quite interesting to look at the landscape, because Channel 4 actually brought Rick and Aid to the attention of everybody much earlier than the young ones did, and it seems to be forgotten about, and it's an odd one. What else?
The people involved in the comic strip, it's like a who's who, almost a British comedy for
it is, isn't it?
For 2 decades,
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane pops up. Obviously, you got French and Saunders. Yeah, God. Peter Richardson, who is now a hell of a director and has done some great films. I'm trying to think what else.
Keith Allen, Alexis Seal.
Yeah, well, Keith Allen we won't talk about because he's an arsehole. And he's brought us Lily Allen as well, the bastard.
Well, and Alfie, there's a whole family there.
Exactly. Oh my God, yeah, damn it.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
else?
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think Second Sight have had a great year. I'm looking forward to next year as well. Jesus,
Wow.
the stuff they've come out with this year has been ridiculous. We're Paranormal Activity this year.
I think that I might have been the very start of this year, quite possibly
Yeah,
the end of last year, but it might be one of those ones came out tail end last year. You only picked up this year,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. I'm just having a quick
Uh,
look. Well, I
May
mean, there were...
Frontier came out this year. Martin came
Oh
out. Texas
yes,
Chainsaw. Then we've had Ginger Snaps, which I'm hearing great things about
yeah,
that trilogy, and
yeah.
yeah.
Even though the second and third aren't particularly good, I'd still probably pick it up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the May is one of those that I've had on DVD for decades. It feels like it anyway. And it was the American DVD, so I couldn't not let go of it until something else came out. It was like, yeah. Martin,
Yeah.
like you said, what a phenomenal set that is. I've still got hold of the original Arrow DVD because it's got different commentaries, which is
always good.
yeah. And kind of frustrating as well because I was thinking, well, we'll manage to get it all in one place, but no.
And then
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to next year because they're doing the Hitcher.
that's
And
right.
I'm trying to think what else they've got. They've
Dead
got
Man's
some...
Shoes is coming out as
Oh,
well.
yes. I saw the teaser for that the other day.
Indeed.
Yeah. So they're in for another great year.
And the X trilogy as well, Pearl, X, that kind of stuff. I think they're talking about that.
Yeah. So. I'm not particularly sold.
I haven't seen any of them. I just they are in sort of in the zeitgeist of modern horror movies, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
Less
see.
said about that, then the better. The other stuff I've been scooping up really was I was picking up the occasional network release. Whenever they had a sale, like Randall and Hopkirk are picked up, and
yes, their TV work especially. Yeah.
Yeah, their TV sets are superb. And one of the knockout sets this year was they did a fantastic Persuaders 50th anniversary set.
That's right.
And then they did an ultimate collection of Space 1999, which is a phenomenal set. And then about 3 weeks after Space 1999 came out, they disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's a very sad time.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Crossroads there. They did the Ultimate Crossroads set as well this year. But yeah, Space 1999 is something that I actually have a lot of time for. I love dipping in for a couple of episodes every, like 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. I'll do a run of 3 or 4 episodes in a row. And the remastering they did, and it was amazing. Like
it's
I have
so good.
The super size Space Theater box set that they did the full remaster of and did the full frame of. It's incredible.
It's fantastic the amount of stuff they've got as well, like alternate soundtracks and alternate edits, and it's just how the hell did you manage to find all this? Yeah. Good grief. International cuts.
Yeah, and the other stuff that I really loved of theirs that again nobody else is going to, the real shame about it is that nobody's going to pick up the mantle of doing any of this. So all of the Jerry Anderson stuff, like I know it was very popular for them, but like the colorization of like Joe 90 and all of that kind of stuff. Like when they used to do a new colorization, one of those used to go, oh my God. It's an almost religious experience watching that kind of stuff, not in black and white, but in this kind of like beautiful color work that was there. Oh, just amazing.
Yeah, there's also the stuff like The Intruder, which is an odd little TV series. It was only shown once. It ran for 4 or 5 episodes.
That's right.
And then forgotten about. And they managed to find it and give it some love and release a beautiful Blu-ray of it, and it's going to be lost. You're not going to get any other company that's going to go and pick that up and go, let's do this. Oh, let's do the Owl service as well.
Oh, the Owl service. That was the other one I was just typing in to look in Google there to see what it was. I knew there was another one that did it. Yeah.
And they had the balls to actually go, well, we might only sell a couple of 100 copies, but let's do it anyway, because you never know. Something like this, it might actually catch on, and it can actually snowball. But they've still got the tent poles like Space 1999 and the ITC stuff to keep them ticking over, so they could do stuff like that. And do Arthur Mullard comedies from 1972 that nobody's ever heard of.
They were also the label that were releasing a lot of the other Hammer stuff that was being available in the UK as well, as you quite rightly know. And again, all that stuff's gone. Like, all those properties are gone. All those restorations are done. It's just so sad.
Yeah, it's a sad collapse. I mean, it's all kind of crumbled as soon as I can't remember his name, but
Yes, as soon as he
the
died.
founder. Yeah, as soon as he died, you could see it was starting to kind of crumble away, and it was so frustrating for me as a Hammer fan because while he was still alive, they were actually in talks with Network, and Network were going to start releasing lots of original Hammer films from pre-Dracula, anything from 1934 to 1958. And they did one called The House Across the Lake, and they did an amazing job of it. And it's a fantastic transfer, and you think, God, I felt like I had my eyes scooped out and put new ones in, because seeing it like that, it would like, because obviously I was used to seeing a really shitty old print anyway.
Of course, yeah.
Jesus, yeah. So I was so depressed when that came through. Right, Hammer's gone then, and then of course Hammer did go. Sort of July this year. That were just game over, and then luckily John Gore's gone and bought them and sort of give it a bit of a boot. Yeah.
But it does go to show how much, not just like home video, but cinema is wrapped up in a couple of individuals, like around the place, like just one or two people that are keeping these stories alive, keeping these things kind of in the zeitgeist, as I said before, and keeping it going. Like, you look at the releases, we're talking about Radiance. Like, a lot of these releases have never been seen or heard of before. They're very much new coming in. We've got the Polish sci-fi set that's coming up, World Noir coming up. We've got like a filmmaker like Alan Cavalli who did Philip Super. His new stuff's coming out, Le Combat dans l'Île, etc. Like, all that stuff's only happened because of one or two individuals.
Well, it's Fran, isn't it, basically, with that one? And he must have the wackiest film collection I've ever seen. No idea. How he knows about this stuff, I don't know. He's just next level, isn't he? He's forever out there looking for something new, something nobody else has heard of.
Yeah. Like, I've heard Fran talk about before. Like, I think one of the reasons a lot of us identify with him is because he's very openly said things like, go back to the start of my career 15, 20 years ago, I had not a clue about any of these films, much like people are relying on me to kind of say, here's a film worth watching. He's went on that journey himself and kind of come out the far side and went, like, film has a whole other level to what I even knew about, in terms of what was available or what you could watch or whatever's going to happen. So, yeah, it's a bit sad. That's why it's important to kind of support what you like and doing that kind of stuff and make sure people know that what they're doing is good work.
Yeah, actually communicate it back towards these people, because they are people at the end of the day.
Indeed. The one that I have great affinity like that for is with Adam at Third Window Films. Like, they've been doing this director's commentary series, which is like kind of this early 80s kind of company of directors who got together outside of the studio system, decided to make their own movies. A lot of great filmmakers came from it, but the first three releases coming out, Gartham Underground, which was okay. I was watching Door last night. Typhoon Club's out at the end of this month as well. That kind of stuff is, again, not going to be seen in this country unless there's like one person kind of saying, go and watch it. And they're producing like 2,000 copies and not selling those out. And like, if you want to see more of that stuff, you've got to support it as best you can.
Because these poor guys have just got sheds full of them.
Yeah, indeed.
Down at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah, indeed. So there's lots of stuff coming out towards the end of the year, to get your teeth into. There's the Coffin Joe set that you were talking about, actually, with Arrow.
I'm looking forward to that, because the set that I used to have, the DVD set, wasn't exactly the best, but it was okay. I can't even remember what label it were on now. It's so long ago. No, it's gone blank. It was a really odd label.
Yeah.
Not one that I can think of straight off.
Yeah, so see the Coffin Joe stuff, right? For somebody that doesn't know an awful lot about the Coffin Joe set, aside from there's a really expensive box of it coming out. What's your primer for what people are going to get there, Kev?
Um, God Almighty, I'm trying to think what it's like. Seriously, I can't even think about any sort of people that you could actually give us a reference point.
Okay.
He's basically a lord of the underworld, the and the undead and the supernatural, and he's got to be seen to believe. It's really odd how Coffin Joe is kind of. It transcends the films himself, because the I can't even remember his name now, but it's that long since I've seen him. But the guy that plays Coffin Joe became Coffin Joe. That's how he was known, and he sort of took over his life. And I was trying to think, the last one was only late 90s, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, and that one was on. I know that one was on Tartan. Oddly, that was released separate from everything else, and that was the one that put everything to bed. And I can't remember what that was called. God, I'm gonna have to get my letterboxed out now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
But that is interesting, because I had seen the trailers for, obviously, the set that's coming out, and actually what you described there is pretty much what looks in the trailer, and like a kind of hodgepodge of a lot of like ideas and underworldy kind of stuff, and kind of with the weird and the wonderful, so to speak, kind of captured on film.
Yeah, it is. I think it's because you didn't have particularly that many coming out from Mexico, isn't it?
I think it's Brazil. Is it Brazil or Mexico? Certainly
Brazil?
around that area.
No, it's all right. I'm thinking of Lona. Brazil. Brazil. So they're kind of pushing everything into the same set, so they can actually.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah. Also coming out as well, for this could be of only interest to those of us from the British Isles. We're getting another complete 40th anniversary version of Blackadder.
Hey,
it's Christmas. Let's do a Blackadder set. So it's coming out, I think, at the start of December as well. Can't complain about a Blackadder set, especially in Blu-ray.
It'll be good if they've actually put some thought into it and put some extras on there, like they did with the young ones. There's some decent commentaries on that, and decent documentaries. I'm trying to think what else there's coming out. I'm just looking at me Amazon. I don't actually use Amazon for anything else than a wish list these days.
There's a couple of Warner 4Ks coming out that were much lauded. So Rio Bravo, which I love, is coming out in 4K. I love a good Western. East of Eden's coming out. James Dean films coming out in 4K.
Oh.
And The Color Purple is coming out in 4K. All from Warner before the middle of December. Nice. Also out narrow, Tremors 2, Aftershocks.
Not sure about that one, but
yeah, I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure about Arrow, to be honest, at the minute. They just seem to be doing too many reissues in 4K, and kind of pisses me off when you've got stuff like the Scarlet Box, the Hellraiser box, which was as rare as hen's teeth because it actually sold out on pre-orders.
That's right.
And that was like my holy grail, and I'm thinking, God, and now it's worth bollocks all. But it's not the fact that, but it's the fact that I'd have to buy them all again just so they've got Hellraiser 4 in the set, because the Scarlet Box went to 3. And
that's right.
It's a different set of extras as well. So that kind of annoys me.
It's a weird one, because obviously if you hadn't bought the Scarlet Box, or you hadn't shelled out for a previous set, these new sets are great. Like there's no doubt about it. Like in terms of like enhancing them with extras and all the rest of them. But like I say, those things were very expensive at a time and a place, and they almost feel inferior now, which is like, I know it's the way the world goes round, etc. But it also is this thing, like those those extras are good, and I know they sort of play into their own market insofar as, right, here's a new set. It's in a slightly higher resolution, but we're going to make it worth your while going in. But it means that we have this expensive cardboard now sitting, and you can't turn that round.
Yeah.
In some ways, or create space, and you don't want to because you've got an emotional attachment to the memory of even picking it up and going through that set the first time and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't think it's quite as easy, and I know this is really a first world problem for a lot of people, but for those of us, anybody that's listening to this podcast, I think they'll understand, or a lot of people will understand what that means, you know.
Yeah, I'm not even sure whether the new Hellraiser set has the Leviathan documentary on it, which was the one that was split across the 3 discs because it was so huge. Just Chris is doing it. Chris is on it.
I'm on it, but whether it'll tell me anything is neither here nor there. Who knows? The deep dive that you do into what
do
is...
you use DVD Compare?
Oh, that's the one. That's the one to do. I'm going
DVD
on reviews, etc. for the thing.
Yeah.
Now, the main difference in the new box set, obviously, is the work print cut of Bloodline that's in it. I think everything does carry over, though. I think everything was carried over, and then they enhanced.
Fair enough.
Like, there's another commentary and another documentary on one. I know for sure.
Oh, right. So it's basically brute force all over again, then.
So yeah, well, you know that idea, but you know, for somebody that watched only Hellraiser 1 for the first time this year, like, I had one of the old sets and never ripped it open. It is hard for me, especially, to upgrade that set because I didn't. This is my first time experiencing the films, if you know what I mean, and I don't even have the legacy of like a couple of years down the line doing a rewatch or anything like that. So
yeah, the Bruce Lee set. I'll tell you about that in a sec. Hang on. Where is it? This is terrible radio.
There's me saying you were a professional. Dear God, what happened?
No. Useless. No, right. I got this Bruce Lee set a few years ago, and it's the Fortune Star set.
Oh, yes.
It's that one. And it's a lovely set, and it's all 4K remasters, and it's all in DTS, and it's very nice. And I thought, rather than me actually shell out for the Arrow Blu-rays, the Arrow 4K set even,
4Ks, yeah,
not Arrow Blu-rays, I'll just go through this again and see what I thought. They made 1,000 of them, and I've got number 84. And when I started watching it, you know what? I don't like Bruce Lee. these films are rubbish, like terrible. So I'm glad that I've got that set because it reminded me not to spend shitloads of money on another set I'll still not watch because I'll think I really don't like him.
I'm not that much fun. It's I don't know. Bruce Lee, I think, he definitely has his own style. He's cool, but I think if you watch all his films back to back, there's sort of diminishing returns as you kind of make your way through it, and they try to do the same thing again and again and again and again. In a lot of stages, certainly that's my memory of an awful lot of his films. What is nice about it, though, is that they did at least reissue a lot of the films individually, so that if you only wanted to pick out 1 or 2 of them, you could, rather than have to shell out the £110, whatever it was, for the big box.
Yeah, rather than watch Game of Death. Oh God Almighty.
Yeah, indeed. So,
but
they've got those.
There's one thing that really struck me this time round, and it's the lack of humour. There seems to be a complete lack of humour on Bruce Lee films. Everything's very deadly dull. And that's why when you're talking about some of the 88 releases,
yes,
they've all got a certain sparkle. There's always a glint in the eye, which it's just lacking from Bruce Lee films. There's something about them. It's just too po-face.
Yeah, it's when Sammo Hung started to get involved, I think he brought an awful lot of the comedy to that. He was a very strong comedic actor in a way that probably Bruce Lee wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, he could do comedy as well as he could do action and choreography, and especially something like Mr. Vampire, which I think is kind of one of those major films that changed that genre, and totally people could see that you could have really good kung fu with really strong comedic elements and have fun with these in this mystical world and all that kind of stuff. I think that's all very true.
Yeah.
Terrific. So we're on to, well, the film. I say film that you that you suggested or otherwise. I think I preempted this a little bit because obviously I've known Kev many years to be a fan of this particular series, and I'm a fan of this particular series, so much so that probably much like your own family, Kev, my younger members of my family are really in a rich vein with this TV series as well.
Yeah.
In terms of both the different iterations of it, etc. So I suggested, why don't we do something like this? So I'll let you pick the episode of it. I did a little bit of research on it, and it's so much like a film that it even has IMDb and Letterboxd ratings. So this particular serial has an 8.1 on IMDb. It has a 3.7 in Letterboxd. It has a total runtime of 100 minutes, so it's actually a film, right? And it's from 1977. What is it, Kev?
It is Horror of Fang Rock. Not the Horror of Fang Rock, how some people will call it. Yeah. On DVD as well. Not even the spangly Blu-ray yet.
No, this hasn't made it onto the. They haven't done this series yet, have they not? That's 15 as it is.
They did Series 15, Series 16, which is fantastic as well because they've really started hitting the stride because the end of Series 15 ends with Talons of Weng Chiang.
Yes.
And then they follow it up with this, which is, to all intents and purposes, a kind of move from the... God almighty, what's his name? It's a move from the Fu Manchu set to Hammer.
Yes.
It's very much a Hammer horror set in a lighthouse, then crossed with 10 Little Indians. And then space. It's a fantastic story. It's so well written. It's great. And it's one of those where it's a formative memory because I remember school, and I'm guessing it must have been my English teacher. He was a fan, and he actually played as the Doctor Who and the Pescatons, which was an audio adventure starring Tom Baker. And we were all switched on to that because obviously at the time, Tom Baker could do no wrong. The whole generation, there wasn't anybody that wasn't a fan in our school. And when the Horror of Fang Rock came out, he must have had one of the earliest DVD players, earliest video recorders, because he brought it in himself, and he taped off thing, and we did it every week. We'd do a report on it, and that was done. Obviously, he must have done it over the school holidays because I think it went out in September, which would have made sense because I think we did it on the run up to Christmas, and that story just sticks out. Because of that experience of actually watching it with all your contemporaries, not just your family, but your whole class, episode by episode, and then writing a report on it and seeing what themes and what you could take from it. And there's so much to dive into here, Horror of Fang Rock, and it's a standout. Yeah. Especially when you look at what follows it, it's the invisible enemy. Oh, God almighty. We've got space prawns and K9.
Yeah. I mean, this was the first time watching me for Horror of Fang Rock. I'd seen actually a lot of things before it and after it, but I hadn't seen Horror of Fang Rock. So much so that I didn't even own this DVD, and I had to go and buy it to add to my DVD collection, which I swear I was never going to add to because the sets are coming out. But I'm very glad that I did. It is so clearly a horror. Like, if this was out as a film, there are a lot of deaths in this for like 6 o'clock on Saturday night. Like, I think I put it in the notes from the trivia. Spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it, every guest character dies in this. Like, literally every single guest character dies in it, which is amazing.
I think they're actually having a go back. I'm sure they are doing some kind of backlash at Mary Whitehouse for this. Because she would constantly complain about them, and for them to actually then release a story where everybody dies except the Doctor and Leela,
Yeah,
that's got to be sort of two fingers up to her.
yeah, for sure. Like generally the story, as you said, is a lighthouse located at Fang Rock, which the TARDIS arrives, but the lighthouse itself starts to malfunction. I think is probably the best way to do it. The electricity starts to go, the boiler starts to act up, etc. And there are strange things happening around the place in terms of, you know, people dying or things going missing, all of that kind of stuff. But it has that, like you say, that very Victorian kind of Hammer feel to it, you know, that kind of very gothic feel to it.
Yeah, very gothic.
In terms of like these really enclosed sets, but kind of well production designed in it. And then you get a crowd of people that get added to it, and like a ship crash is full of these very well-to-do, wealthy people that are stuck now in a lighthouse, which is so beneath them, etc. A lot of things about class and about all that kind of stuff that's in it. I mean, the whole thing is so many layers and whatever else going on. Like it's so good.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about this, because there's so many little details that you can pick out from it. There's like so many arcs that carry on throughout Doctor Who mythology. First, starts off the big bad in this that is the Rutans, who are the enemy of the Sontarans, and then the Rutans turn up as a mention again in the Invasion of Time at the end of. I don't think it's at the end of. It might be at the end of season 16. Thinking about it, because season 17 is the Key to Time, so it will be.
Yes, it could be 16th Key to Time. Yeah.
But again, it's nearly. I'd have to see nearly a year later they come back. So you've got that. You've got the mention of Brighton, because they turn up and Doctor Who, the Doctor is trying to go to Brighton. Don't know why. Just wants to go to Brighton. Doesn't get there until 1978. No, might even be late in 1979, because it was City of Death, wasn't it? It opens with Brian, with Leela. No, with the second Romana. It was not the first one. So yeah. Then there's like you said, the class. The fact that he's written it so well that if he's obviously realised that if you just have your 3 lighthouse keepers and the Doctor and Leela, it's going to run out of people very quickly, and it's going to be a 2-episode thing. So to bring the shipwreck in, but then to have an operative piece of shipwreck that they need at the end, you know, the diamond.
That's right.
It's just a beautiful little detail that it's kind of a throwaway thing. You've just got this guy that's obviously insanely rich, and he just walks around with pockets full of diamonds, but it's just kind of thrown away in episode 2, I think it is, episode 2 or beginning of episode 3 when they first turn up, and it's not mentioned again until the very
end.
Final. And then of course it's, oh my god, well, it just so happens we have diamonds.
Here's a MacGuffin.
Fantastic. There's so many MacGuffins in this. A tour de force of writing. And to say that and to say that it was written on the fly, if you like, because originally it was going to be State of Decay. That's right. Of course they got the Jordan version of Dracula coming out on BBC, so they had to slate it because they didn't want Doctor Who doing vampires in case it looked like they were taking the piss. So wow,
the whole thing's sort of incredible. So it couldn't help but strike me how, like, this probably isn't true, but John Carpenter must have been a big fan of Horror of Fang Rock, because 2 of his films, his most prominent films, are basically take the Horror of Fang Rock's central ideas and run with them.
I never thought about that, you know.
Very much so. I mean, it's very striking.
You've even got a lighthouse in the fog.
Yeah, indeed, exactly right. That idea that the fog isn't just fog; it can't be just fog. There's something else going on here. And then, but the other one that I mentioned would be too spoilery, I think, to go for. But I was sort of sitting there going, "Oh, this is such a brilliant idea," because there are reveals in it. Sometimes Doctor Who stories can be a bit like formulaic in terms of, right, this is going to happen a bit later. Something like this will happen. We'll have a change, but this one actually has, I would say, a twist in it, or some twists inside it that really give it that extra kind of thing of, "Ooh, that's interesting," you know.
Yeah, it keeps you interested because it's kind of a like a roller coaster. You just think that you're gonna be okay and everything's gonna be fine, and then there's like another problem, and suddenly, oh, the threat that we thought was the threat is not the threat that we thought, but it's the threat is now inside.
Yeah,
It's not outside anymore, and it's then I think it's the end of the third episode.
that's end of 3.
About lycanthropy.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Wow.
Brilliant.
Right.
I thought that was great. I thought that bit was particularly great. There's no doubt about it. Do you know, I have to say, this might be a very controversial opinion, so this will be the first time watch. I only really have one problem with the entire serial.
Come on.
I don't think Tom Baker's very good in this one. And I love Tom Baker.
Yeah, I think it's because at the time he was, how can we put this? He was at odds with everybody.
Yeah.
And not just on the cast, but the crew. Him and Louise Jameson famously fought quite a lot until quite late into the filming of this, and then suddenly Louise Jameson actually stood up to him. And the problem was with Tom Baker, if you let him, he would get away with anything.
Yeah,
you had to be strong, especially producers and writers and directors. If it was some director that was coming on that had never worked with him before, very hard, because they had to deal with this huge ego, because obviously he was in situ. He's the longest running Doctor. He ran for 7 years. So he'd got an ego the size of the planet by the time he got to the later seasons. And ironically, the episode after this, The Invisible Enemy, where you do get K9 coming in, that was another thing that really started to see him really start to go, I'm uncomfortable with this because I hate the dog, because the dog is getting all the attention. Yeah. So he really was, he did feel like the whole thing hung on him and he was the star. But obviously, he wasn't going well behind the scenes because they were just going, now you got to try and stick to the script sometimes, you know.
Yeah. He kind of was doing it. It did feel like he was almost wanting to do what he wanted to do. He was at odds with the script and with the direction of that comes across. Like, I do love from a lot of the more recent interviews with Baker how he owns this period of his life and how he says, "No, I was an ass. There was no doubt. This was during my period where I was impossible to work with." He knows that himself and he accepts that.
Well, even when he got married to his assistant,
that's right.
You know, Lila Ward actually said it became impossible, and he says it's all his own fault. He quite happily admits that he cocked it up, you know, and just ruined everything.
Oh,
so yeah,
it's pretty sad. The director Paddy Russell never worked on Doctor Who again after experience of working in this.
I know,
I believe.
and she'd been working and she'd been working with him since Hartnell. I think she started with the Buccaneers, maybe.
Yes.
A very early one.
Certainly early on. Yeah.
So she'd done some really top-notch Doctor Who's by this time, and then to do this and then go, now you know what, I'm done with this, shows what kind of tension there was on the set.
Yeah, because Baker very clearly did not like the script, which is so odd because I think in a slew of what were Doctor Who series at the time, I think this is a really great one. You know,
yeah, it's a top-notch script. There's nobody that feels like they're underwritten. There's some great bits with Leela. I mean, there's even a bit where she talks about technicians, which is a lovely kind of callback to the previous season when she first meets him in Face of Evil, where they had the technicians were the opposite tribe. So there was little things like that, and Leela's interesting as well because the only reason Louise Jameson came back for this was because they said, right, okay, we'll take out the contacts. You don't have to wear the brown contacts anymore.
Which they do address as part of the script, actually.
Yeah, and in a very clever way as well. And I quite enjoyed that. And it was like, but why did they actually make her wear brown contacts in the first place? It's just bizarre. One of those choices where you think, well, all right, lads, bit far. I mean, in the 70s, your TV couldn't actually detect whether it was brown or blue eyes anyway. There was only,
it's so dark.
I mean, the ITT TV set where they actually did an advert with a Indian in full headdress. Well, now we call him Native Americans. Native American in full headdress. And the shot was this guy on an ITT TV set on the advert and saying, look at how better that looks than your telly. And you think, God, it does. It looks a lot better than my telly. And you're watching it on your telly.
That's right.
All right. Wow, that's some next level pranking you're doing there.
Other things to say, sorry, Kev, is I think the guest stars' performances in this are brilliant as well. Like the cast and etc. for it, I think is absolutely again
exceptional. I mean, Ruben is amazing in this. Colin Douglas, I think his name was.
Yeah, it is.
God, he's and the fact that they've actually got them all to have the same accent, which very rarely happens, and they've all got that nailed. They've all nailed the same accent, so they feel like they are from the same kind of village, sort of lumped in there for 3 months at a time.
Yeah. But Ruben's such a great physical actor, never in terms of like the voice, the drollness of his voice, but his presence every time, the way they shoot him, kind of looking up to him the whole time is like this very imposing figure. And, between him and then John Abbott who does Vince. And then I love the interaction with Harker, who's the guy comes from the other ship, insofar as, again, this class thing of I own you, boy. And they're on a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, and really order of leadership or otherwise is gone at that stage. And he's like, I don't think you own anybody. We're kind of all in this terrible situation ourselves. We're lucky to be alive. And your disregard for other people is irking me a little.
I did every one of these feel like real people as well. I don't know how much of it is down to script and how much of it is down to the actors bringing it all to the set. But John Abbott, you mentioned John Abbott. This was his first TV appearance.
Yeah, crazy.
Which is amazing because he really does stand up against some quality actors, and he's doing a grand standout job of it. But yeah, Colin Douglas as Ruben, especially when you're on about him being an imposing figure, but the imposing figure really starts to pay off when he becomes this possessed imposing figure, because there's something about the way he changes his physicality. He starts to walk in a different way, and his movements become a lot more deliberate and laboured. It's interesting to say the least.
Oh, it's his smile. I love his smile when he starts to smile, and you're like, right, okay, this is interesting. I adored this. I adored watching all 4 episodes and then revisiting it and going through. And sometimes it can be a case of sometimes, God, I need to get the end of this 4th episode of the serial. All the good stuff has been gone out of the story. We're going to just need to wrap it up. But this was definitely not the case. This was an inventive ending, and one that sort of set up, like I say, an awful lot of the future lore that was coming to the story. So it was cool. So great choice, Kev. Absolutely brilliant choice.
Yeah, cool.
And one that I'm very glad that we finally get round to talking about. Like I say, it is available in physical media, even without Blu-ray. These discs, if anybody doesn't know, they can be always picked up for a couple of £. They're always great quality. There's no such thing as a bad DVD from Doctor Who or otherwise. The extras on those are only added to by the Blu-ray sets, but they often steal a lot of them from those original discs and by the time they get round to the Blu-ray set. So hearty recommendations. for sure. Cool.
Fingers crossed for the Blu-ray set next year.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it'll be due to come otherwise. So
now you've bought it, yeah.
Yeah, and well, indeed, it's going to come. I don't mind about that because those sets are an absolute treat.
Yes,
as it goes. So that's it. So that's the end of our episode, Kev. An absolute pleasure.
Oh, cool.
And one that was a lot of fun to do. If anybody wants to find you, where would be the best place to find you?
Normally you can just find me at Kevney, which is at CEVNI on Twitter, which I don't use that much now. I'm on Blue Sky. You can probably find me on there as well. Again, just use that Kevney and it'll turn up. And on Instagram, it is Kevney_Moo.
Excellent. And like we've already said, numerous podcasts, most notably probably the House of Hammer, but I'm always a particular fan of FilmGuff because yourself and Ollie,
it's irreverent.
Favorite people. It is. It's always fun.
Yeah.
You nearly, I should tell you, you nearly sent me down a very dark hole when you did your Film 4 episode. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do a video series and watch every single Film 4 film. And I enjoyed that episode so much. And I bought a whole of this, started to watch them, and I went, I don't have that kind of time, Chris. What are you talking about? That's absolutely insane. But yeah, there we go. So that was
I was lucky enough to pick up the Naked Blu-ray, the BFI one.
BFI one from Mike Lee?
Yeah, talking to Film 4. And I was happy to pick that up in their sale this year, Christmas, this year, this summer.
Yeah.
And,
Easter, as we were saying.
Yeah, $6.99. Like, fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. It was, my thing actually about doing the series, I was going to do them kind of numerically, alphabetically. Right, and so the first one numerically alphabetically in the Film 4 range is the most unfilmed 4 film of them all, which is 12 Years a Slave, right? Which it doesn't actually feel much like a Film 4 film, although in probably some regards is probably the most successful Film 4 film as well, you know what I mean, in terms of accolades and awards and money and all that kind of stuff. So I had done that, and the next one after that is 24-Hour Party People. So
that's the most Film 4 film you can possibly have.
Which is kind of where it's like, maybe I could do this. Maybe that's a video idea for further down the line.
I think,
but there's a lot of movies.
I think the safest way to do that would be to go through biographically, because otherwise you'll just be forever backtracking and going, hang on, they've just released something else now that's cocked up my C section.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah. See, there's still an ongoing thing.
Oh, that's true. See, save myself from a lifetime of hurt and embarrassment. That's amazing. So I'll catch us next time on the podcast, where we'll have another guest who you might know, Kev, as it turns out, discussing another film, which I'm sure will be very different from what we've done today. So otherwise, I said stick all the links down in the description, and I'll catch you next time on the podcast. Take care, everybody. Edit and Chris here. Suppose you should also drop in what the next movie is, shouldn't it, for the next episode? It's going out in December, and Christmas movies, not Christmas movies, you decide, because Die Hard's up next. Alright, everybody, catch you in the next episode.